So I talked about the project yesterday a little bit, and I said how we moved on to co-designing some spaces. So I'm not going to talk about Jump again. Talked about the project yesterday. It's a children's physical activity project that's happening in Bradford. We'd already been developing green spaces. These are just a few of the spaces we've been developing. Quite different spaces, wetlands, nature play area in an existing park, and the brand new park. But most of this work had been done consulting with primary schools, younger children, and we're at the stage in the project where we realised our project goes up to age 14, and we weren't really thinking much about adolescents. What's on the slides again? So we came up, obviously, as I said, I got connected with Make Space for Girls, and we decided we were going to do some co-designing parks with adolescent girls. I called it a co-design, so I don't think it's co-production. Again, we had timescale constraints, budget constraints. We couldn't kind of co-produce the method with the girls, but we co-designed it with Make Space for Girls based on their experiences of doing some of this work across the country. So our research questions were, is taking a co-designed approach to green space development with adolescent girls acceptable, and is it feasible in Bradford? We reviewed existing toolkits that involve adolescents in planning, such as Young Place Changers, Voice something Power, can't remember what the middle one is, and Seen and Heard, and Her City. But we felt they were more for people who had big budgets, who could engage adolescents over a long period of time, and it just wasn't suitable for the population we were working with and the timescale that we had. So with Make Space for Girls, we developed a process where they were invited to a workshop, so a group of about 12 girls, which was about 3 to 4 hours. We did pay them for their time in shopping vouchers, and we provided lunch. We asked them to think about parks when they were small versus parks now. So what did they think about parks? We got them to visit a space that we were planning to develop. So we have, as I said yesterday, funding from Sport England, and part of that is to develop green spaces. And then we got them to come back to the class where we were and tell us what they loved about the park as it was, or the space as it was, what they wanted to get rid of, what their kind of dream park would look like, and what they wanted to avoid in the development. We then had an activity where they did some kind of creative design of the space, which in the very first session was facilitated by graduate landscape architects. In the other 2 parks that we worked with, sadly we weren't able to get that support, and I'll talk a bit about that later. And then the plan was to do a follow-up workshop where a designer who was responsible for that space within the council would come with some kind of a plan, taking on some of their ideas, and the girls would get to review and revise that plan to something they were happy with. This is just an example of some of the things the girls designed. Quite different methods across the different workshops based on the people that were facilitating it. Quite different designs. The spaces were very different, and obviously what the girls want are very different, but what was consistent was swings, social spaces, and nature was a really big thing, zip lines and big slides. But the girls weren't just thinking about themselves, they were thinking about their siblings, they were thinking about things like sensory gardens, benches for parents to watch their children, so they weren't just thinking about what they wanted. So this was one of the case studies, I think, in the Safer Parks design guide. And this actually, the girls are going today to be doing some planting there, which is quite exciting. It's nearly ready to be developed. So it's a really small place in a residential area. That has a traditional playground that's quite run down, and this is just a space on the playing fields there. And that was designed with the Bradford Council support. And this is another space, Manningham. So this was an area where it's essentially next to a sports centre. There's a big sports pitch there, and we couldn't do anything with that, but we had access to a small space. And the girls who use this space, it's mainly a South Asian community. They wanted somewhere they could hang out after going to madrasa. So they wanted like a seating area, they wanted sociable swings, bit of nature. So again, quite a small space, but we've created some kind of pocket park for them with some nature area. And then this site was a bit more difficult. So it's a really big site. There's nothing there at the moment. It's next to a community centre, and it wasn't being designed just for the girls. So although we did some consultation with the girls, it did go out to broader consultation with the local community. So it had to try and take in everyone's needs, not just focus on the girls' kind of needs for that. And yeah, sadly we haven't been able to go back to the girls to revise that plan because of timescales and complications that were out of our control. So in terms of evaluating this process, we've engaged 35 girls aged 11 to 15 across the 3 parks. We had researchers attending the workshops who completed process observations, and we've got the girls to fill out a post-workshop feedback form. What they really liked was visiting the space. They loved working with others, like sharing their ideas and opinions, really kind of having their voice heard. They really valued the staff there, so the workshop facilitators and also the particular session where we had the graduate landscape architects, and they really loved the creative activity. What they didn't like was presenting or talking about their ideas in front of people. We did try and get groups, friendship groups, but we couldn't always, it wasn't common that the 12 girls knew each other. The timing of the workshops wasn't always convenient, so it was either too early in the morning, they were too busy after school, they had to miss mosque, so I'll talk about that in a moment. And they didn't feel there was enough time to discuss and review the draft designs. So these are some of the things for us to think about. Reflections, so providing food and selling it as a fun, interesting education experience is really important, and it's really important to consult with the group regarding a suitable time and location. So the groups were set up and coordinated by one of our community activators who work, the people that work kind of in the madrasas, in the community centres. The creative design experts were a really useful asset in the initial design phase to help think beyond traditional designs. So some of the girls we worked with had never really seen anything beyond a traditional play area. So as I think it was said yesterday, they didn't really know what they wanted. So having those people there were really important to help them think outside the box. And if you can't have those people there, it's great to have some kind of resource that you can refer to and look at some of the great designs that have been done elsewhere. We didn't have the assigned landscape architect in the first workshop, so we were worried they might stifle creativity and complain about budgets and maintenance, all that kind of stuff. But actually, I think having them there was probably an asset. It would have been an asset in the future. So speaking to the landscapes team, I think that might have helped them. So have them there, provide the girls with clear expectations, but don't stunt their imagination. And it's important to communicate the potential of delayed timescales from the outset to manage their expectations, keeping them updated and engaged throughout the process. So what I'm interested in looking at is what's the impact of taking part of this process. So I want to do some focus groups with the girls once the parks are completed, they're up and running. And impact on taking part as well. So I know that one of the girls has since done up her mum's garden, and she's enrolled on a horticultural course at college. How does the co-designed green space influence their attitudes and behaviours towards the space? So how is it being used now it's up and running? So that's through focus groups. We talked today about the importance of evaluation. So we've used Park, which is the park audit I talked about yesterday. We did it last year. We're doing it again this summer across many parks in Bradford, and again in the future. So we'll be able to see if a girl's usage of spaces, including the spaces we've developed, is changing, and how it's changing in areas where nothing's happened. Again, publishing this work, and it's really important now to work with the Bradford stakeholders to think about how we can mainstream gender equity in urban planning and design, and how we make sure that they are evaluating public spaces. So coming up with some kind of best practice of engaging girls in this process in the future.
Fantastic.
Yeah.